know if you could hear that little pinging noise.
I see things as live.
And you should see live up in the corner there, and that lets us know that we are now live.
I see it.
Awesome. So in the event that we do get anybody watching the show, I'm going to put the Q&A up on the side. So if we do have any live Q&A questions come in, that would be great. I'm not super well advertised at this point in time, so I'm not expecting any, but maybe over time that'll start to take place. All right, I'm going to start the digital recorder and then the intro music, and we'll get the show started, Gilles.
Okay, sounds good.
Welcome to itManageCast, the podcast for busy IT professionals who want news, reviews, and interviews on the topics of IT operations, service, and project management. So put your head in the cloud for the next 30 minutes and join your host, Jason Kennedy, for this week's episode of itManageCast.
Hi, listeners, and welcome to episode 3 of itManageCast. This is the podcast for busy IT professionals who want news, reviews, and interviews on IT service, operations, and project management. I'm Jason Kennedy, and I'll be your host once again today as we discuss IT service transformation with our guest, Gilles Marchand. Gilles, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining me.
Jason, thanks for having me on your podcast to discuss IT service management.
Fantastic. Now, before we get into the meat of the topic, I'd actually like to torment you a little bit with a game that we play. The concept is to help our listeners get to know you a little better, but really it's just for my own personal entertainment at your expense. The game is called 5 Quick Questions. I will ask 5 very brief questions and ask you to provide me with your quick answer, the first one off the top of your head for each question. Are you ready?
Ready.
All right. Question number 1. Favorite vacation spot?
I'd have to say the Greek islands. There's a little one off the coast of Turkey. I'm not going to tell you its name because not a lot of people go there. It's my favorite place to go.
Fantastic. All right. So people have to contact you if they want that information. All right. Number 2. Pen or pencil?
Pencil. I like a pencil because it's like the erasable marker for a whiteboard. One of the things I really like to do with organizations or clients is whiteboard sessions.
Oh, I understand where you're coming from with that for sure. That's a great analogy. I love it. All right. Number 3. Apple's, Windows, or Linux?
Okay, I'm going to have to go with Windows. The reason why I'm going with Windows is because I have a Windows 8 phone and I have a Surface Pro 3, and I just love that.
Wow. So you're the guy with the Windows 8 phone. All right.
Yeah, I'm one of the ones. The rare ones.
Fantastic. Number 4. What's the last book you read?
So it's called Let's Pretend It Never Happened, and it's by Jenny Lawson, and it's kind of a quirky little book. It's about things that happen in our lives that we pretend never happened, but actually influence us into the individuals that we are. So I like a little bit of humor because in the IT business we get a lot of stress, a lot of other focus. So you need to bring a little humor in your life.
Nice. That sounds really interesting. I'll have to check that one out. All right. 5th and final question. If your workplace was burning down and you could only take one thing with you, what would it be?
Of course, it's going to be my Surface Pro 3. I just can't live without it.
All right. Well, thank you, Gilles. Thank you very much, and for allowing me to torment you. And perhaps now we can give our listeners a quick background on yourself, and also let folks know how they can reach you if they want to follow up on anything from today's show.
So, Jason, I've actually been in IT for over 30 years, so I'll try and keep this brief. I know this is a 30-minute podcast, so I don't run over on you. So I started out my career in the managed services business, doing data center planning and business continuity planning. Then I moved to Saudi Arabia, got a 2-year contract with the National Airline center, which actually ended up being 10 years that I stayed there. And then we came back to Vancouver, worked for a small software company. I think it was employee number 32, and I actually built their technical support and services team. I kind of missed, the data center and IT services side. So since then, I've been working with companies independently, focused on optimization of IT service operational processes and the technology around it, how we provide those services to our clients.
Great. And so I'm going to ask you how folks can contact you, but before I do, I just want to acknowledge that we're getting a little bit of drop in your audio. So I'm not sure if that's going to be the interwebs or the hardware. So maybe we'll try again here just by asking you if you can how folks can contact you.
So I could be contacted either on LinkedIn or by email at gmarconsulting@outlook.com.
Great. Okay, and just so you know, that the audio is coming through better now, so thanks for making the mic adjustment. Let's start off into our discussion on IT service transformation. And to get us started, could you explain or define for us what IT service transformation means?
So, as I mentioned, IT service transformation is a term that I find is widely used, whether it's for an organizational change, a technology change, or for some financial reason. However, what I believe that IT service transformation is all about is the alignment of IT with business.
Great, thank you. So, given that explanation, why is IT service transformation something important for IT professionals to be thinking about?
Well, we have to start at looking at ourselves and how we carry our day-to-day, activities, our business, how we move to a society that conducts those tasks online, utilizing our smartphones, our tablets, our computers, whether it's banking, shopping, or streaming video. This is what we're doing now. So needless to say, this is driving the way that business has to provide service to their customers. For IT, all the users of the services of the technology it provides, whether they're internal or external, are customers. IT really needs to understand what the customer wants and how to provide the best user experience. User experience, I find, is really important because you want to make sure you're getting the most of what it is you're trying to do. I'm seeing organizations moving more towards measuring and ensuring end user experience satisfaction, so to retain that business and make sure they can grow it. So I feel that IT has to change from thinking that they drive the business to the fact that the customer is the one who steers the direction. That being said, IT has to become more business oriented, and you really need to forge a strong bond with the business units in order to become agile and be able to move on business initiatives.
Wow, yeah, that's great. I couldn't agree with you more on that. And Gilles, if our listeners are thinking to themselves, man, I need to initiate an IT service transformation at my workplace. Of course, if they're going to do that, any project we're going to launch in IT, we should be putting a business case together for that. So what key things should our listeners consider to help them create a business case for a project around IT service transformation?
That's a really good question. And as I mentioned, the most important thing is to align with the business. So we have to have a strong relationship with the business units. And by doing this, IT should do the following. So what they really need to do is look at the what. So we have to look at ourselves and say, what kind of business services do we provide? I find that a lot of the organizations, IT organizations, forget that the business actually supplies something, whether it's insurance, banking, in the hospitality business. So we really need to understand what our business is and what we're doing. And then how we do that. How do we provide that service to those people? And then why? Finally, you have to look at yourselves and say, why do we do it this way? Why do we provide a service this way? And how? How do we provide it? Is there room for improvement? Are we doing what we really need to do? So, you have to really look at that. And, this leads to self-evaluation of, are we doing the best? Can we improve it? And then remember to keep it simple. So you want to make sure that you don't try and boil the ocean. Meet with stakeholders and decide what initiatives really need to be addressed. Prioritize them and look for quick wins. So, Jason, I'm sure you've seen this in some of the discussions you've had with some of the organizations you've been involved with.
Absolutely. And I think you've really keyed in on some of the key pieces there around communicating with the other business units and looking outside of IT to understand how you can deliver those services. So, yeah, bang on.
So by fully understanding what the customer wants and aligning business units and IT, we can work hand in hand to enable the business and provide the expected customer experience and satisfaction. And that means that by building your business case in business terms, right, that's going to help your senior management to understand what it is you're trying to do and how you're going to move it forward. So senior management, CIO, C-level, or just executives, they don't know technically how you're going to provide the solution. They're not interested in that. What they're interested in is, what are you going to do for me? How are you going to grow the business, or how are you going to enable the business? So communication is important. IT has to get the message out to all the areas, including IT itself, to the other parts of IT, whether that's the development staff or other people within that umbrella, senior management, business, and end users of the service. So if you do that, you're actually going to alleviate a lot of unnecessary worry.
Fantastic. So if the request comes from the other direction, as opposed to introspection from IT leaders and folks, possibly even listening to this podcast and saying, yeah, this is something we should take on. If the shoe is on the other foot, if our listener is posed from the business units with the challenge of transform our IT services to reduce the costs of IT, what should they be considering?
IT should really be looking at three things. We should be looking at the people. So the people within our IT organization, what are our capabilities of IT, and are we making the best use of those resources? After that, we should look at the processes. So how and why, again, we provide the services. So by doing this, IT can look at improving current processes, so streamlining those, maybe simplification, right? Make sure they're in place, and removal of any duplicate processes that are redundant within the organization. The last thing you need to look at is the technology. So are we making the best use of our technology solutions? Can we reduce IT costs by rationalization of software and technologies? I've seen in many cases where organizations have multiple applications or tools that are similar, or even multiple versions. You can see organizations where they have Adobe Acrobat and 5 or 6 versions. So by looking at all these things and taking all these things into account, we can actually become more agile. We can save money by improving the way we provide that service.
Fantastic. Well, that seems like really good advice to me, and hopefully our listeners will feel the same way. So, Gilles, as we're coming, maybe wrapping up to the end of the conversation, specifically around IT service transformation. If you could leave the IT professional who's considering a service transformation initiative with one piece of advice, what would that be?
It's communication. It's really getting the word out. It's getting it out to everybody to understand, because when you mention the word transformation, people get worried. They kind of go, So what does that mean for us, right? What does it
Right.
mean for us? And you always got to think about that. So you need to get the word out. You need to tell them, what you're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're going to do it, and how it's going to affect their everyday, work or life within the organization. I really can't stress that enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think communication is always one of those things that, at least historically, has been a challenge for IT groups. Certainly, I'm seeing a lot of maturity in that area in the last few years, but boy, I couldn't agree with you more. All right. Gilles, you are welcome to hang in with me through our Tip of the Week segment and share your thoughts. So
I'm looking forward to that.
All right, with that, I will jump into this. Now, for our listeners, I got to let you know that I was a little late in pulling together the Tip of the Week. So Gilles has not seen or heard this yet, so he's going to be coming at it with fresh eyes. All right, so our Tip of the Week this week is to get engaged in the IT community through user groups. Whether you're new, well-seasoned, or just considering a move into a particular role in IT, I'm fairly certain that there's an active international and likely local user community for you to join. Gilles, any thoughts around that?
There are. So you can find, there are user groups within LinkedIn. If you go to meetup.com and join there, you'll be amazed at how many groups there are within the community that maybe you want to get involved in, user experience, developers, all kinds of things.
Absolutely, great advice. And I would say, if we're looking at maybe a value statement to throw out here, in my experience, the key value in getting connected is that you bridge new connections with professionals who share an interest in the subject matter area, and they're going to be able to help you deepen your knowledge and broaden your professional network. So there's your value statement. You don't have to limit your interaction in your area of expertise to the annual mega events in Las Vegas. There's nothing wrong with those, they're great, but there's more available for you. It's quite likely you can attend in-person events for minimal costs each month if you do your research. And I think that's what Gilles was throwing over there as well. If you're interested, so here's some examples. If you're interested in project management, check out Project Management Institute chapters. We'll throw the URL in the show notes. If ITIL is your game, look into the ITSMF organization. Again, we'll put that in the show notes. And definitely, as Gilles shared earlier, a great tip is to join up meetup.com and search to it for local groups that are meeting on relevant topics to your interest area. Gilles, any other thoughts on that concept?
No, I think you've hit the nail on the head, and there's lots of interesting people out there, and not just attending the groups. You'll actually make relationships with those people, and sometimes you're just going to get together over coffee and say, "Hey, I have this issue, or I'm thinking about this. What do you think?"
Fantastic. So listeners, if you have any IT project or operations management tips or tricks, or if you'd like to share any details on upcoming IT events for a professional organization you're involved in, please send them to us via Twitter at itManageCast, or email them to us at itmanagecast@gmail.com, and we will make sure that you get full credit when we share them in an upcoming episode. Well, that wraps up today's show. So, Gilles, it's been fantastic speaking with you, and I want to thank you sincerely for joining me on itManageCast podcast. And I look forward to having you back.
Great. Thanks a lot, Jason. I really enjoyed doing this, and I'll come back anytime you want. Any interesting topic you want to talk about, I'm sure I have an opinion.
Fantastic. Thank you. And goodbye, listeners.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to itManageCast. We hope you enjoyed spending this time with us, and we really want to hear from you. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at itManageCast, and email us your thoughts and opinions at itmanagecast@gmail.com. To join us for our live recordings, follow us on Google+ and YouTube. This show is Creative Commons Copyright 2015 by Jason J. Kennedy.
And that's the live recording. everything stopped over here on my side.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to stop the broadcast on Google+, but you and I will still be connected.
Great. So